icon of all icons at the world's most renowned amusement park, a steadfast monument to a 143-year pursuit of happiness, a guardian to the pearly gates of roller coaster paradise. A new season dawns over the coastland of Cedar Point, revealing a legacy of wood and steel against the sky. It was on this lake, along these same shores, that a relaxation destination was born in 1870.
The beach is what put Cedar Point on the map back in the 1870s, 1880s. That was the primary appeal.
People came out here for recreation because it was much cooler than the mainland of Ohio. You're out here on the lake, you always get a breeze, and then the hotels developed, and live music, etc., was the entertainment.
Soon, the entertainment became one of the first modern roller coasters, and the amusement park would ride the wave of roller coaster innovation into the next 2 centuries. Built on the supports of the tallest, fastest, steepest, longest, most iconic thrill rides in the world, a reputation was established, and the modern Cedar Point was born. Over the years, however, the beach that gave birth to the park was demoted from its prominence. The shoreline was barricaded by attractions like Disaster Transport, a family-friendly bobsled-style coaster built on the beach in 1985, but enclosed in a massive building with extraterrestrial theming in 1990.
Placemaking is something that I'm very strong on. You need a good sense of place. And so when you come to Cedar Point and you're coming across the causeway, it's the landscape of all the roller coasters. And then the beach. A mile-long stretch of beach is just beautiful. So you don't really want to wall that in, which over time, the park tended to do that.
In 2011, Cedar Point and the parent company it founded, Cedar Fair Entertainment, hit the drawing boards again to conceive a concept that would change the face of the park.
We had known for a long time that we were due for a new roller coaster. We looked at a lot of different options. We looked at a building in the back of the park, the front of the park. We're on a unique piece of geography here. We're at Lake Erie on one side, Sandusky Bay on the other. We're really a barrier island, and we have to be very, very shrewd and very creative when it comes to finding space to put things.
It wasn't until the November 2011 International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions trade show, or IAAPA, that the pieces fell into place, with a little added pressure from Cedar Fair's new CEO, Matt Weeman.
We were at IAAPA, and I was in a meeting, and we were going through our 5-year plan, and I think we were at break, or Matt, strategically stopped the meeting and said, look, we need something really strong for Cedar Point. It's got to be strong. Go back to the trade show floor and come back and let me know what you find. So I was going to come back with a good report or hit the airport and never to be seen again.
It was then that Rob ran into an old friend of Cedar Point and the man responsible for 2 of its major coasters from the mid-90s, Walter Bolliger of Bolliger and Mabillard.
Met with Walter Bolliger, and Walter was just describing what he's doing next, working on a wing coaster. So describe it for me, Walter. And he said, look, when I'm in an airplane, I'm in the cabin, I really want to be out on the wing. That would just be a lot more fun, don't you think?
Along with introducing a newer style seating arrangement to the park's ride lineup, Matt and Rob wanted the project to kill 2 long-term birds with 1 stone, to help rediscover the beach and to revitalize the park's dilapidated 1960s front gate.
So we had the opportunity to open up the views of the beach. But I think the crowning moment is to celebrate the arrival to Cedar Point. I've always wanted to put a roller coaster at the front gate, and so I've waited patiently for a number of years. It just says you're the roller coaster capital of the world, and it just comes right out to the front door and says, come on in, we're having a great time.
To make the ride one with the new front gate, Cedar Fair and Bolliger and Mabillard dreamed up an extension of the minimalistic gate structure itself to support the coaster. 2 62-ton towers with portals just wide enough to accommodate the ride's abnormally outspread trains. However, to make way for the coaster, more than the old front gate would have to be demolished. Space Spiral, a 330-foot observation tower, and Disaster Transport would both have to go.
When we put a big ride in, we do kind of look for where we can economize or where we can take a few out. So you're just not adding to the cost and adding to the inventory without thinking through it. You have to do it in this day and age. In this case, we did take out two older rides that had lived their useful lives. Space Spiral and Disaster Transport were kind of a pain from a maintenance perspective and had declining ridership. Avalanche Run, which morphed into Disaster Transport, was not as successful as we thought it would be. It was a bobsled ride. The way it was originally manufactured, it was 6-person. We made it 10-person because we thought we needed more capacity. We changed the sleds from being smaller to being bigger. When we did that, I think it lost some of its excitement.
Guests tend to vote with their feet, and Space Spiral ridership was pretty low on it, and the maintenance costs were extremely high. We have to just put that through the matrix of how are we entertaining the guests versus the cost per guest to entertain them, and then talk to people and see what they really like.
If you asked our guests what would you rather have, a big new $25 million wing coaster or keep these two rides, I think they'd vote for the coaster. But to put GateKeeper where we put it, right on the lake, this is where we had to do it.
With the older rides out of the way, a beachfront plaza that could serve as the ride's entrance would be opened up. By removing minimal parking spaces and a picnic pavilion, a clear stretch of land spanning the front of the park would serve the coaster's layout perfectly. The layout itself would include 8 key elements. The tallest inversion in the world to start the ride out, a twist and diving drop at 17 stories, an Immelman inversion, a camelback hill right with negative G's, an oversized corkscrew, a first 0G roll through the keyholes and over the gate, an inclined dive loop, a second roll, and a helix finale. In true Cedar Point fashion, the ride would surpass all 4 of its wing-style coaster predecessors for height, drop, speed, and length. Spearheading the structural engineering at Bolliger & Mabillard's Swiss headquarters, Kim Gent got to work crunching the numbers.
There's a lot of engineering work behind each coaster we do. We consider a lot on the design of the structure of the column, of the trains, all the fatigue resistance. The challenge we had, it was the size of the coaster and also the importance of the aesthetic, having this ride right at the front of the gate to find something which looks good.
Now, the Cedar Point team was tasked with dreaming up a name worthy of the 2013 ride.
In the business, there's a lot of discussion about if you really want something to be iconic, it's got to be alive. It's got to be a creature that breathes life into the whole process. We considered a lot of names before we chose GateKeeper. We had all the work at the front gate. Somebody came up with the idea of a creature who's like the gatekeeper. We had that aha moment. The name will drive everything, ultimately. It's going to work well in merchandise, work well on a TV screen, and look good in signage that will excite people. The first year of a big new ride introduction, you're probably going to sell the most merchandise that year. So you want it to be the best. You want to make sure you do it right.
On July 29, 2012, Disaster Transport demolition began, with Space Spiral bowing out on September 12th. Now, 3.5 acres were ready for the newly announced GateKeeper.
The construction team here is really stellar. You have to build through the winter. We operate in the summer, and so you have to be ready with all of your documents. Come September, October, things are slowing. We had to close a couple rides before we were really closed with the park. Convincing park operations that that's going to happen isn't always easy, but it's worth it. What you run into right here on the lake is high wind conditions. So any of the high work with your cranes could be delayed. Fortunately, we were so far ahead of this that if we lost a few days, we knew we could recapture. So testing right up to the end, but we're in really great shape.
It is very cool to watch it being built from my office window. I have a clear view of the main hill and the camelback. And I could watch the progress all last fall and during the winter. You get itchy, like what's it going to be like, what's it going to be like, what's it going to be like. It's a huge investment, so it is a big roll of the dice. If you spent $25 million and you didn't get a ride that was a $25 million ride, you'd be in trouble. So you do everything you can to make sure you get what you're paying for.
Given the history of the park and where we've been with world record-breaking roller coasters, this has to be of that caliber. It has to be enjoyable. And the expectation's so high. We're trying to reach out further into the marketplace and get outside of just the 150-mile radius. And so it's going to take something of stature to get people to pay attention.
With aspirations and millions of dollars riding on GateKeeper's success, it was the moment of truth for Rob, John, and Kim. The first ride.
I got the call that B&M were ready to release the ride to the park. We don't ride it until, operationally it's safe. They're comfortable with it. It's doing everything that they would expect. And then we get to go for a test run. So they take off the water dummies and the real dummies get on, right?
It is a little bit like being present at birth because they become your kids after a while. I rode on the front row on the right-hand side. So when we went down over the top of the lift, we were down low. Very cool.
Riding on it, of course, it's just fantastic, especially the first drop with the spin right at the top. It's just amazing. And also it's going through the keyholes and twisting around through the ride with the speed.
When you look at it from the midway, it does not look that fast. But when you're on it, it's greased lightning.
I'm there in the front seat, and my adrenaline was just really, really jacked sky high. It was a lot faster than I thought it would be. I feel like I've ridden it 1,000 times before, and I just sort of lost that along the way and then rediscovered it in my first ride.
The amount of air time when you go over the camelback, that was very cool. I thought the keyholes would be great, and they were, because you have a tendency to go like that, you're going to lose a limb or something. The transitions are smooth, and it's a nice long ride, 2.5 minutes.
I was very impressed with it. The second ride was even better for me, because then I could just start to take in the elements a little more, focus on the keyholes. I just can't wait to ride it again and again.
Then, the second week of May, 2013, it was time to see if the public would embrace GateKeeper or if it would turn into another disaster transport.
Wow, we're here. We're really here. Winter's over, the ride is ready, and you're all riding GateKeeper. This is the greatest day.
Coasters are in our DNA. They are our passion. It's what we do here. I also think we're pretty good at redoing entrance gates. What do you think? The coasters don't come alive until you hear a few screams. And you are the folks that supply the soul for a great roller coaster.
There's nothing above, nothing below you. It's just amazing. You feel like flying like a bird. I'm very proud to present B&M. To work with Cedar Point is always a great pleasure.
I don't think we need to judge GateKeeper by just its statistics. I think you're going to find that it's also transformative. Things we're doing with planning now in the park are, look behind you, opening up the views to the lake. What a beautiful place Cedar Point is.
1,700 guests an hour board GateKeeper's trains, loading 2 abreast on either side of the track in 8 rows. Now, it's time to conquer the ride's 4,164 feet of track. From the station, a U-turn provides a 180 panorama of the coaster's lakeside plaza before the train arrives at the base of the lift hill. With Lake Erie to the left and the park on the right, GateKeeper climbs to its 17-story summit at a 45-degree angle in seconds. As riders crest the top, the entire L-shaped layout becomes visible ahead. Twisting upside down, GateKeeper begins with a 164-foot plunge, reaching 67 miles an hour. An Immelman inversion immediately follows, with a dive to the beach leading into an airtime-laden 105-foot camelback hill. A corkscrew lines the train up with the front gate. Now, it's time for the centerpiece element, the near-miss zero-G roll over the entrance, before an inclined dive loop aims the layout straight toward the gate once more. Rolling 360 more degrees over guests below, GateKeeper heads for home. Under the corkscrew and through a quick set of brakes, passengers dip down into the finale, a downward spiraling helix under the camelback. Finally, a hop and turn into the brakes wrap up the 2-minute-plus ride.
Watching the reaction of people after they've ridden it. Standing at the base of the exit and saying, "What'd you think? What'd you think? Did you like it?" I do that all the time. I could stand at the exit to Raptor or Maverick or Millennium Force, Top Thrill Dragster, and you know whether you've got a hit or a miss. It's a good way to pump yourself up anytime you're feeling a little bit down. Talk to guests after they get off a great roller coaster. They're always in a good mood.
It's fantastic, first of all, to see all the people smiling and being happy riding on it. That's a great satisfaction for our team, for Cedar Point, after so much effort.
My reaction when talking to people who have ridden it is they think it's a great ride. A little pleasant surprise for us is that the age demo that it's going to appeal to is broader than we thought originally. I think we'll have a lot of families ride it. It's exhilarating and fun, not overly scary.
As GateKeeper's grand debut proves a success, the masterminds remember the team that made it all possible.
Well, putting the whole thing together is a big effort. It involves so many different disciplines: architecture, planning, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, construction talents, utilities. We also have to look at the marketing side of it, the business side of it, the merchandise side of it.
I'm just so proud of the whole team. You know, everyone has their role, but everyone has an idea that they can throw in at any point, and each one builds on the next, so it's an iterative process. It's just really rewarding just to be part of that.
GateKeeper is something which has been a great success. It's because of Cedar Point, which was a great team to work with. So without them, we wouldn't have that today.
Even as the gates have barely been opened for the 2013 season, Rob looks ahead to the next 5 years of Cedar Point's timeline and what's going to keep bringing fans back underneath GateKeeper's arches.
We're always looking to go taller, faster, or more experiential, or something along those lines. You know, we have some other things in the works. Some could be quite hard to do, given that the park is so well developed at this point.
We don't have any limits. We are aiming to the wish of what the park wants, so we see what will come next.
On the same sands that first welcomed guests in 1870, GateKeeper welcomes new generations. It's not just a roller coaster, it's a gateway back toward the once forgotten vistas of Lake Erie. It's a mission statement written boldly across Cedar Point. And it's a promise that an American landmark is about more than just its history. It's about even bigger, bolder things to come.